Welcome to the Inside Slant Podcast, brought to you by JayhawkSlant.com. Here's the staff from Jayhawk Slant, the online leader in KU coverage since 1999.
Hey everybody, this is Randy Withers. Welcome into another edition of the Inside Slant Podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. We have got maybe the hottest basketball team in the country, in the Kansas men's basketball Jayhawks, climbing up the rankings after a huge win over Arizona, handing the Wildcats their first loss and also KU's first win over a number one team in the history of Allen Fieldhouse. We're also going to talk football, but the show, it's going to be a little different than some of our podcasts because it's really going to be more guest driven than anything. Baseball season. Kansas Jayhawks started their season Friday night. We'll be joined by head baseball coach Dan Fitzgerald. Always love having Fitz on the show. Does a great job and just brings a lot of passion that I know everybody is excited to hear as we gear up for the start of baseball season. We're also going to hear from Kansas Director of Sports Performance, Matt Gildersleeve. Sleeve is going to talk about the football offseason, how the program is handling that, how he's working with the influx of new players, and a lot more for you. Before we get into that, let me get started by bringing our man on the men's basketball beat from the Allen Fieldhouse suite, Mr. Shea Wildeboer. Shay's joining us right now live from the press room at Allen Fieldhouse down in Lawrence. Shay, hear anything interesting from Coach today?
Wow, Coach he isn't a big social media guy. And
Mm-mm.
someone asked him a question, and he said, I've been on X, obviously Twitter, reading about Darren Peterson, and he looked at all of us and basically said, you guys, the narratives about Darren Peterson are BS. First of all, he's back at practice yesterday, practice today. Coach is hoping he has full speed by Saturday. But he made it clear, and I know that there's been some articles written about Darren and some things have been said. Guys, he basically said that the hamstring was legit. The cramps are legit. The rolled ankle, he said Darren didn't practice for 9 days and returned, is legit. He was sick. Bill went into the locker room before the game on Saturday, or the game on Monday against number one Arizona, and the doctor looked at Bill and said, Bill, he cannot go. And people ask, well, why was he out there then? Well, he tried. He wanted to play. He wanted to give it a go and couldn't. Bill said he was lightheaded, wasn't feeling well, gave it a go. And you guys, I can't remember the last time that Bill was as passionate about something like this on social media than he was today. You guys, whatever is going on, it's legit. And I think that's the statement that Bill went. Like the kid has taken a beating on social media.
Yes, he is.
A beating. We're talking about a 19-year-old kid. And I hate to say this, but Bill called it bullshit. I mean, in passion speech, you guys, the kid wants to play. He has had, and here's the word that I love that Bill used, a string of bad luck. And I can't remember the last time a Kansas player had the type of bad luck that Darren has had this season. I mean, and still, he missed 11 games, averaging 20 points a game, back to practice. Do people really think that he wanted to sit out against UConn and Duke, Arizona? No,
Those are the games you sign up for.
Right. And I've been doing this, I think, with Kirby for 24 years or however long. I've seen a lot of things, but this kid is being painted as I don't want to say a bad kid, but a kid that's bowing out of competition, and that's not the case. It's bad luck. I mean, and as fortunate as it is, it's legit and it's real. So yeah, it was, a lot of talk today about Darren and where he's at and how Coach Self feels about the narrative. So I'm interested to see big game on Saturday, and I'm interested to see how well he plays, how he responds, and he is generally at his best when his back's against the wall, whether people are chanting obscenities or whether people are writing things that aren't true. There's a false narrative. So I'm interested to see how he performs, not only Saturday, but the remainder of the season. Randy, we've got 7 games left in the regular season.
And that's crazy.
Right.
It's absolutely crazy. Shay,
Right.
you mentioned Saturday, heading to Iowa State, going to Ames. This is the hottest team in the country that has now won 8 straight. As I said, just knocked off the number one team in the country. But they've done it, with a combination of with Darren Peterson and without Darren Peterson, and they've really shown an ability to just switch gears almost on the fly and
Right.
look really, really solid as they're doing it. How important is it that they've been able to do that and not just to learn how to play without Darren, but to learn they can play without Darren and have the kind of confidence to play as well as we've seen him this year?
I think it's a game changer. I think it's the reason that they've had, listen, Bill Self always talks about a tight huddle, and the huddle this team has is as tight as any I've seen. You guys, I don't know how long these guys love playing with each other, and I think the emergence of Melvin Council is something that I never ever ever saw coming. I think with 7 regular season games left, there's no doubt in my mind that he's the team MVP.
And
And you guys
he is the absolute unquestioned fan favorite too.
absolutely. And I was getting ready to say that. Like I've seen, like after games, he runs into the stands. Like
I
runs in.
love that.
And you guys, here's the thing. Like normally, like I remember when Kemper, my son, was a kid, like 8, 9, 10, 11 autographs, and like he'd want all that stuff. But people that are his peers, people his same age, are
Mhm.
like they just want to be around this guy. He just plays with a certain energy, has a certain style about him. And at first, I wasn't sure about the dog mentality because that's not something we've seen at Kansas. I mean, it's never about me, me, me. At Kansas, it's always about us, meaning them. And he has just got this mentality, this dog mentality that people have taken to. He refused it. He was 6 of 25 the other day, and I think 11 of 13 from the free throw line or 12 of
And
13.
did not realize he had fired up 25 shots as we've
Right.
all seen from the video.
Just a will to win. You have Trey Young, who really the last couple of games has struggled a bit. Steps to
Mhm.
the free throw line with KU up 2 and hits 2 crucial free throws to put them up
Yep.
4. Who expected Jamari McDowell to have the type of year that he, listen, is he perfect? No. But you don't sign up when you sign up at Kansas, you know you're not going to be perfect. Really I think he tied his first career high in the first half with 10 points, and just hitting big shots. El Marco Jackson, that bounce pass he had to Bryson Tiller in the second half for the two-handed flush. Guys, just you're down 11. Listen, you're down 11 in the second half. You find a way to make plays without Darren Peterson. And those kind of things, Randy, they just snowball. And people start gaining confidence. People start seeing shots fall. People start grabbing rebounds that they don't normally grab, or fight for loose balls they don't normally fight for or don't normally get to. Flory Badunka is second in the nation in blocks and just making unbelievable plays above the rim. And it's just
Best defensive player in the country.
right,
Coach is
right,
right.
right. And everything. And so when you get into a situation, let's say in late March, where you're making an Elite Eight run or a Final Four run possibly, and you look around, you're down 11 or whatever the case may be, you got dudes that know they can do this.
Hmm.
And hopefully, I think the thing that Bill wants, that KU wants, is they want, Darren to be at his best when it matters most. But if he's struggling a little bit, you still know that you can win big games. And to me, that is the biggest lesson that this team has learned, that they can make it happen. I mean, you had Paul Mabia come in for a few minutes, and Cole Rosario. If you look at body language, his shots aren't falling, and I feel bad for the kid because he's a good kid, but he's the first guy celebrating. And
And he's
these
playing
guys,
hard when he's out
right,
there too.
right. He rebounding the ball, diving on the floor for 50 balls. His
Hmm.
shot falling, but when you're struggling, are you going to just continue to shoot? And are you going to have bad body language? Or are you going to do other things to help the team? And he's doing things to help the team. And again, it all kind of trickles down from the first man up to the last man on the bench, and everybody's doing everything they can. And it's been a great 11-game win streak. And you just continue to learn things. I mean, who thought KU would win down 11 without Darren Peterson? I mean, I thought it was going to be a situation where it might get a little bit out of hand, but it was the complete opposite.
Shay, you talk about dudes, and we all know how important, premier players are in today's college basketball. And we're talking about another one in Tyron Stokes. I know you
Right.
are on Tyron Stokes' watch right now. What's the latest on the top player in this upcoming recruiting class? And is there anything else that you're tracking from the recruiting trail at this point?
I think they're ready to put the staple on this class. Here's the thing, Randy. We're getting close to All-Star game season.
Hmm.
Other schools are trying to get involved. Other schools are throwing big amounts. I'm guessing around. No other visits have been scheduled. I know his mom was here when he officially visited the first time. This most recent visit was an unofficial visit. I just think he's waiting for the right time. And my thoughts about Kansas have not changed. I know Kentucky's kind of starting to put things together. But I think that the work that Kansas has put in, the relationship that he has, not only with Coach Self, but with Curtis Townsend, and Curtis Townsend's relationships with those people at Rainier Beach, to me, at the end of the day, it just makes too much sense. So to me, it's not a matter, and I'm not saying it's going to happen for sure because nothing happens until it's signed. It's not a matter of if, to me, at least right now, it's a matter of when. And I think as the season winds down and you start getting into all-star games, guys like to make announcements. Guys like to blow things up. A lot of anticipation. So yeah, I think to me, you got to work on that Nike deal, and I'm not sure what that looks like or how that works. But yeah, I think he's gonna. I think for the second straight year, unless something just drastic just happens, KU will sign the number one ranked player again.
That's our man Shea Wildeboer live from Allen Fieldhouse. Shea, thanks for checking in with us.
Man, you guys have a good day.
That's Shea Wildeboer on the Kansas men's basketball beat. And now, I'm going to say something I haven't said in a little bit. We're going to talk some Kansas Jayhawk baseball. Baseball team gets started on Friday evening, and there is no better time to hear from the Jayhawks head baseball coach Dan Fitzgerald than right now. We'll be ringing Kirby right after the interview here, where he is going to talk with Coach Fitzgerald this morning on the studio line, or share the conversation that he had with Coach Fitzgerald on the studio line right now.
The baseball season is officially here, and the Jayhawks have already traveled down to Texas to start the season, and we're going to stick to tradition. The Jayhawks head baseball coach, Dan Fitzgerald's joining us, who is the reigning Big 12 Coach of the Year. Hey, Coach, I hope you've got some good baseball weather and you're ready for the start of the season.
John, we've got great weather, and got a great practice in last night at UTRGV, and got another one today before we kick it off tomorrow.
All right, so the first question I want to ask you is kind of a question you probably didn't think you'd get asked, but I'm looking through your starting pitching rotation for the weekend, and I've always followed the top high school prospects, and subscribed to Prep Baseball Report and some of those guys. And Madden Seidel, tell me a little bit about him, because I'm a freshman from Emporia, and I don't remember a lot about him the last couple of years, but he's found his way into the rotation from Emporia. To talk about him.
Yeah, he's a guy that popped up late in the summer, and John and Brandon and I'm talking late July. Like, this was one of our last adds to the roster. We had some shakeout with just graduation, and then we had to wait for the draft, and then you get through all that stuff, and then we had a couple spots left, and we said, gosh, let's just add best available. And Madden was pitching at a deal down in Wichita, and John went and watched him and really liked him, and Brandon went, I think, 2 days later or 3 days later, and saw him again. And they did a great job projecting him. He's a really good athlete. He played 3 sports in high school. He played football, basketball, and baseball, and had a couple connections to us as well. His grandpa is a Hall of Fame high school basketball coach, and actually good friends with Brandon Schneider. So, it's so funny how often the sports at KU get intermingled with so-and-so knows so-and-so. But Brandon said, hey, I know this kid's grandpa really well. And we just started recruiting him, and it was very evident early on that athletically he was elite, and that there was another jump in there, and then he's a great worker, and a late find, but a diamond in the rough for sure.
I'm going to stick with the starting pitching. You've got Dom going and Mattis Nayrol. Just talk about, all the KU fans know about Dom, but how do you feel about this starting rotation? And then also talk a little bit about the closer and late inning situation.
Well, this is the most competition we've had in, our time here for our starting spots. And Matisse Nayrol is he's from France and comes to us via Coach East Junior College, and a guy we were really excited when we committed, and just had an awesome fall, and you could kind of see the upticking of his stuff. It's really elite stuff. It's a fastball and a breaking ball, and great feel for a changeup. High level competitor. He's huge. Like, he's a great mover, and looks like a guy that could throw on football pads or run through one of Bill's practices. But just a good looking athlete, and a guy that really pushed Dom. They were really 1 and 2 at the end in terms of competing for those top spots. And then we talked about Madden, and we had 3 other guys that were very much in that mix for the starting deal, and those guys moved to the bullpen, and to start, and that's Mason Cook from McLennan Junior College, who, has done both in junior college. He threw in relief and started, so we really like him. It's a 4-pitch mix and a guy that can kind of mix and match lefty righty, and will be a huge asset for us. Ryan Ritter was a transfer portal guy from the University of St. Thomas who had, a great fall, big physical, 93 to 94 with the fastball, really good feel for his off speed as well, and was right in the mix. And one of these guys is going to end up starting midweek at Lamar, but we're going to just kind of face the weekend and then make a decision based off of what the best matchup is midweek. Carter Fink was another guy that was in that conversation from East Tennessee State, and kind of a funky look righty that, will throw in relief this first inning. And then kind of a couple of the usual suspects out of the bullpen. Cannon Carr obviously started a ton for us last year, but a lot of that was just out of, we were TBD on a lot of Sundays, thinking that we'd use Cannon in relief on Friday or Saturday. And we were in a situation for a good chunk of last year where, we'd get to Sunday and he was still available. So he was very much in the conversation as a starter, but I think his best spot for us is in relief right now, because he can go long and he can also come in and blow the doors down on 3 guys in a row. He's also really good against left-handed hitting, which is super necessary when you're not loaded up with left-handed pitching. So, and then Bodie Ray, I guess, would be the guy we'd probably go to get 3 outs at the end right now. He's a transfer from Kirkwood Community College, and it's a big fastball and a big breaking ball. And then, of course, Manning West is going to factor in there somewhere. And we've got a couple other guys too, but those would probably be the guys that, are top of mind in terms of their performance coming into this first weekend.
I was looking down the roster, starting to do my preseason studying, trying to get a little more in depth. I noticed you got a lot of players who are listed at multiple positions. Is that something you guys recruit to or you develop to? I don't know if I've seen that as much in the past.
Yeah, I think it's for sure something that we recruit to and develop to, and I think it happened out of necessity a couple of years ago when we were really light and, had Ben Hartle randomly thrown into a game at second base, and we were shifting every other hitter and just got really creative with our positioning. And I think through that experiment, we kind of learned that, hey, that versatility of not just being able to, play left field and maybe first base. I mean, that's one form of versatility, but like to be able to play second base, shortstop, center field, catch a little bit is so valuable. And then, we knew that the roster limit was going to change. And so when the NCAA moved our roster limit to 34, I think we all doubled down and just said, hey, we really need to have that versatility. So yeah, that was intentional. And it makes practice kind of fun to be a part of in a lot of ways, because, like last night we had 10 guys in the outfield, and then those same 10 guys came in and got their infield work in, and I think more than anything, it creates confidence and athleticism to be able to just do multiple things. And then, this isn't the point of it, but kind of a secondary plus to it is all those guys learn what everyone else on the field is doing. And so I think it creates a baseball awareness and a mind that's thinking through the game, which obviously is super important.
Yeah, well, sounds like a lot of guys also give you some versatility. Hey, listen, the headliner is Brady, right? I mean, he's on every preseason list and one of the guys that all the KU fans follow. But talk about some other players out there that the fans should have their eyes on and be excited about early in the season.
Yeah, Brady and Dariel are obviously 2 super elite hitters that are going to, be right in the thick of this thing. But surrounding them is Jordan Bach, a transfer from Southern Illinois University, a great hitter, a guy we were super fired up to get. He was a really necessary piece because Brady and Dariel are great, but they don't really fit that leadoff type hitter per se. You kind of want some guys on base ahead of him, and so Bach creates a great leadoff option for us, and then the ability to stack Brady on top of him, or Dariel, or vice versa. And so really like him. Tyson LeBlanc will be our shortstop. He's from LSU Eunice. He was fantastic junior college career, won a national championship, and we kind of brought him in thinking he could do a little bit of everything. He can really run, so we thought, gosh, is he a center fielder? Is he a shortstop? He's just an elite athlete, and he was so good at shortstop. It was very, very clear that's his position now and moving forward. And so a really nice bat that, again, is going to either protect Dariel or Brady in the lineup, depending on, if we're facing the lefty or a righty. I think Max Solis was a great guy to get back. Max tested the portal this summer, which is totally understandable given the fact that, his playing time was very limited last year. But the fun part of Max is, we have such a great relationship, and even when he went in, we just kept talking, and it just came to a point in the summer where he was dominating the Northwoods League, and he said, Max, why don't we run this thing back? And he was super fired up to do that. So he's had a huge fall and a great start to the spring for us. So he's going to be right in the middle of it. Augie Mungarietta, our catcher, was at Rochester Community College in Minnesota his freshman year, and then ended up at Northwest Florida State. And really awesome catch and throw, old school blocking receiver type guy, but ton of juice, and hit a bunch of home runs for us this fall, and has had a great spring. The Schlotterback brothers are going to factor in somewhere, and they're Dylan will play third base. Gavin, of course, coming off of surgery, but they've been fantastic. And then the guy that's really come on late is Josh Dykoff, who is from Minnesota State Crookston, kind of out of the Jackson Hauge mode of multi-time Division II All-American type guy, can pitch and hit, can play outfield and first base, and has just thrived. So he'll be at first base. You'll see him at first base and in the outfield, and he'll pitch at some point. And then Cade Baldridge will play center field to start. But Gold Glove second baseman at Cowley Junior College. So total versatility there. And then we've got a sophomore by the name of Tyson Owens, who, again, really versatile, can catch, can also play outfield, and had a great spring, and is really knocking on the door. 11 of the guys have really separated. But the fun part, John, is that, with the roster limit, it's kind of like managing a big league club, man. You got like 14 hitters, and you can usually get most of them in the game in certain situations. So I'm excited for the versatility and being able to mix and match and try to get all these guys in.
I'm going to date myself here, but I think you talked about a guy hitting and pitching. I think one of the first guys I ever saw do that back when I started watching the College World Series when I was young was Bobby Thigpen. I don't know if you remember that name.
Oh, of course.
So, hey, so you guys, last year, you guys start the season hot, right? I mean, you guys undefeated. What was it, 7-0, 8-0? I can't remember what it was when you came into Lawrence to start the home series, but you guys ran the tables. No, so I look up Rio Grande Valley last night, and I know we're doing the podcast, so I want to study these guys. And I look up and I go, hold on here now. These guys were 36-18 last year. They beat Dallas Baptist. They beat Houston in their non-con. And then I hear they return a lot of players. So just talk about, this opening series and the start to this season, because it seems like it has a little different feel, like a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, a way tougher schedule and very, very calculated on our side in terms of doing that. And I think, when you look at the big picture and building a program and taking the necessary steps, I think, year one, it was really important. In year two, we were way better and needed to take that step forward. And then I thought last year, was really special in so many ways. But if I could poke a hole in anything, it would be the non-conference schedule. it was certainly challenging because we were on the road and all that stuff. But in terms of playing teams that were going to have a really high RPI at the end of the year and really bump up our strength of schedule, I thought, that was an area in year 4 that we could be more aggressive on. And so the other thing is our crowd was so amazing at home last year that I literally wanted our guys to play in front of some big crowds early so that they're ready for that. Because last year when we got home and our crowd showed up, that was the first time that fans had really been at a game. And so I needed our guys to experience that before we jump back home. So UTRGV was a perfect fit for all of that because they're really good. They're going to be a regional team this year. They're picked to win the Southland. They're top 25 in attendance every year. I think we're going to have 6,000 people there on Friday night.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's an awesome environment and they're really good. And it's an awesome strength of schedule weekend. And then McNeese, same thing. Great crowds, great ballpark, well-coached team. McNeese is a team that's been to the NCAA tournament a ton and have a fantastic coaching staff. And then Lamar, like if you look at UTRGV, Lamar, and McNeese, they're kind of the 3 RPI monsters that if you get to the end of the year and say, okay, who could we have played to bump the RPI even higher? And these 3 and about 5 others are kind of the RPI unicorns where they're really good. They're warm weather. They're in conferences that we're not gonna have a ton of common opponents, if that makes sense, which is a factor of RPI. And then the other thing, honestly, John, is if you want to go to Omaha, the path to do that is through hosting a regional. And 20-10 last year and a best record in the Big 12 and a good RPI, but we were on the outside looking in. And I think, a little bit more challenging of a non-conference schedule this year was what we needed to put ourselves in a good position to make a run at this thing.
All right. You talked about last season and the success you had. And then I guess it's like this, Coach, all over the country, right, in every sport. I mean, now you just got your roster turnover and now you got guys gone and all kinds of new faces coming in. What's the challenge with that to keep your program consistent where you have this big amount of turnover? And like I said, I know basketball deals with it, football deals with it, and everybody does, it seems like now. But how do you do that to where you keep success with a lot of turnover?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we spend so much time on the makeup side and what's their DNA when it comes to competing and really being a great teammate and caring about the team experience. But that's a tough one to measure. Like I've heard our basketball staff talk about it, where they talk about Melvin Council. Like obviously knew he was good, but I mean, he has something different. Like he is an unbelievable competitor and so I think what you're getting oftentimes in terms of the player, but you don't necessarily know what you're getting in terms of the intangible piece. And so I think trying to figure that out is the key to the whole thing. And, when you name a lot of the guys from last year and you just look at their blank stats, Jackson Hauge and Sawyer Smith and Ian Francis and Tommy Barth and Brady Council and Michael Brooks and on and on and on. You think about certainly their numbers were great and they had great seasons, but that's not what it was with them. Like it was how hard they competed and the type of teammates they were. So in turning this team over and replacing those guys, it was, all right, we can make a calculated, analytical data-driven decision on does their statistical output, is our left fielder going to put up better numbers than Tommy Barth this year? Or is our right fielder going to put up better numbers than Jackson Hauge? But that's 1/10 of it, because the other 9/10 of it is, are they going to be incredible Jayhawks? And so that's tricky, but we just ask and ask and ask and ask and just try to find as much dirt on these guys as we can in terms of, hey man, what are they like when when it's great? What are they like when it's bad? What are they like in school? And fortunately, the baseball world is so small that we're usually able to get a really good feel for who these guys are. But it's makeup number one. It's the character, integrity, and how they're going to care about that. And so we kind of hang our hat on that and let the baseball take care of itself.
Hey, that's why John Coyne gets the big bucks, isn't it?
He's the best. Well, he's the best. And no, for real, man. Like
I know.
John Coyne was, from day one in this thing, and really long before that, because I've known John forever. But it's what makes him elite. Like, I've told you the story before about going to the baseball game with my kids when they were really little, and 5 minutes into the game, I think Ben was probably like 5 at the time, was like, "Hey, Daddy, the shortstop's the best player. Can we go?" And I'm like, "Is it really that easy?" Like, but John and really the whole staff, their ability to stick to the alignment and not budge off it is really incredible.
Great stuff. Dan Fitzgerald, head baseball coach at KU. They started off definitely, as we just talked about, some little tougher competition. So they will be on, I believe it's ESPN Plus Friday night. Hey, Coach, I got to tell you this. I'm excited to hear that a lot of the games in the preseason or before the conference a lot of them are on ESPN Plus, because last year I think I had to buy like 3 different subscriptions to watch you guys.
I know. Trust me, my kids are too. Everyone is excited. So that's we can't wait to get going. Love these guys, and as fun as it is to be on the road and get going, we can't wait to get home and play in front of Jayhawk Nation and pick up where we left off.
Well, hey, good luck on this road swing, and as always, thank you very much for joining the Inside Slant podcast.
Thanks, John.
Kirby, just a great interview with Fitz, and it's so exciting to finally be back to baseball season, and he has got it going. Team has really built quite a following among our fans, and we've had a lot of talk about him on the message board. It's exciting to see what's happening with that program right now.
Yeah, Randy, he's a great interview. Always like having him on, and he's always willing to come on. Listen, they're coming off a great year. Okay, expectations have risen. NCAA tournament, you heard him there. I mean, he's talking about how can we host a regional. So I mean, that's
love the sound of that.
I mean, that's what their goals are. So, but you heard there at the end of the interview where I asked him. I went over Rio Grande Valley and looked at their team last year, and they were 36-18, and they bring a lot of guys back. And this is going to be a different thing now. I mean, KU started off with some teams that they were able to beat and handle last year, and this is not going to be a cakewalk. So I mean, these first few series, although they're non-con and they're away from home, they'll be a challenge. So I'm interesting to watch. He faces, Randy, they face the same thing that we'll hear from Matt Gildersleeve here in a little bit, or even basketball guys, just the new faces with the transfer portal. I mean, you're just retooling your lineup every year. Baseball's no different. You lose a bunch of guys that you brought in that were 1-year guys, or you lose them to the draft or whatever, or to the portal, and then you're bringing in an entirely new roster almost. So I mean, he's kind of figured a way around that, and I've always liked Fitz because he's very businesslike. His focus is 100% baseball, and if you've ever noticed, he does hardly. I don't know if he's got a Twitter. Does very little on social media. He's just focused 100% on his program. I know that if there's something out there on social media that he needs to know, he's got the guys out there who are in tune, and they let him know. But at the very end there, we talked about John Coyne, who's his recruiting coordinator, and I think they do something different that a lot of programs don't do. And I remember the first time I ever found it out, a couple years ago. I think they were down at TCU, and John Coyne texted me, and they upset TCU in Fort Worth in a game, and they were like top 15. TCU was, and John Coyne sent me a text message and said, "Hey, how about those Jayhawks?" or something like that. And I said, "Yeah, what a cool experience or something like that. And he said, "Hey, I'm headed to Florida to watch a shortstop." Well, I ended up finding out, Randy, even though KU was down in Fort Worth playing a game, he was on the road recruiting.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, it's kind of a different thing. So, I mean, and that's why I think they've been successful. I think he knows, he's got his pockets where he knows the good coaches are and the good players, and he's earned some trust with these guys, and they tell him about guys that they think they can play D1 baseball. And because listen, KU's taken some guys that aren't really maybe on the radar of the big programs, and they've come to Kansas and done very well. So I mean, it's a pretty well-oiled machines, but we'll see how they do in this opening series.
Now we're going to switch gears, Kirby. It's time to talk about some football. And I know things have been a little slow on the football front. Obviously, portal has closed for the year. So, what have you been tracking? Get us caught up on the football program, any recruiting intel that you've got that you can share, because, it feels like it's been so quiet, and it feels like it's forever until spring practice starts. Give us something.
Well, it has been slow, Randy, and I got news for everybody. You got to be patient because it's going to continue to be slow. Now, last night,
Boo! Nobody wants to hear that.
I know, but hey, so we got some big news last night about 9 o'clock our time. Derek Gonzalez, an offensive lineman from California. He's rated the second offensive tackle in the state of California. He basically chose KU over Vanderbilt and Tennessee. He told me
Mm,
this is a big pickup for the first commit
yes.
for the first commitment of 2027. He's like 6'8", 270. I mean, he's got the frame and everything, and he ended up having a really good relationship with Daryl Agpalza. He came in for a game last fall. Like the facilities, like the coaching staff. So that's a big one to get on the board and some
Yeah.
recruiting news. But right now we're in that lull, okay? And we're between the portal and spring football. And something you got to remember, Randy, last year, KU started spring football at the end of February, okay?
Yeah. I
So
remember.
so in 2 weeks, basically from now, we'd be talking about spring football starting. We would be writing, spring profiles and position previews and some predictions. But I mean, spring football doesn't start now till the end of March. So I mean, we've got like
Oh my
five.
gosh.
Oh yeah, we've got like 5 more weeks to go. So
Ugh.
you know, and you'll hear Gildersleeve and he and I's conversation that we'll play here in a little bit. They talked about they wanted to do later in March because when you've got 42, 43 new players coming in the program on campus in the middle of January, I think they learned last year, hey, we got to get these guys in and we've got to give them time to get through our strength and conditioning program. We've got to give them time to get their feet settled. I mean, last year, those kids got in middle of January, and at the end of February, they're rushing into spring football. So I think, they wanted to figure out, you'll hear from Gildersleeve, identify who some of the leaders are, figure out some of the guys' hot buttons, get to learn each player. So you get a little bit more time in the strength and conditioning program. So, but that does leave quite a bit of downtime, with very few press conferences and media availability until spring football. But hey, Randy, I look at this right now. It's like the calm before the storm. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. We got some, the Jayhawks playing good basketball. We got some baseball to start watching on ESPN Plus Friday night. But I'm going to tell you this. The coaches are taking a little bit of time away from the office right now. It's a dead period, anyways. But once they start spring football, it is go time because they're going to go through spring football in March. They're going to go through, I believe, near the end of April. Then they're going to go out on the road recruiting. They're going to start official visits, and that's going to just take us right into summer recruiting. And I mean, we're talking once spring football starts, there will be no shortage of news and articles to write. So I'm looking forward to that. And, it's going to pick up hot and heavy once it gets going.
Love to hear it. Like John was talking about, there's a lot of time, and one reason to get, one thing can be done with that is important to this program is bringing the newcomers to campus and to the KU program, getting them in, getting them acclimated, and getting them ready for the start of spring ball and that furious sprint to the start of college football season. Our last guest of the day is Matt Gildersleeve, who talks about the new players on campus, his early impressions of the group, and what it's like handling over 40 new players at one time.
Okay, so I did want to start with this. Obviously, this is by far and away the most early enrollees you've had, right? With the 30-something portal guys, 11 high school guys. Just talk about when you look at the past, how different is January now that you've got to incorporate all this?
It's a lot more urgent. It's more to do everything. And as we wrapped up last season, and I really evaluated where I wanted to improve and be better and where I thought I could be better, it was really two things were really apparent to me that I thought were low-hanging fruit. And one was we've got to onboard these guys quicker. We can't get them here and spend a couple weeks getting to know them, getting to know their injury history, getting to know what makes them tick. You don't have time. You don't. And every day is always it's been valuable, but now it's like I'm counting seconds now in my brain. And so the first thing was I wanted to totally reestablish our onboarding process of from a sports performance standpoint, how we get these guys in here so that we can truly have an elite level plan the second they walk on campus, because these guys are walking on campus with laundry lists of injury histories, of different character things, and making sure and how we're going to get them to fit into our culture and all those things. So one was the onboarding process. And then I just think in this day and age now with how this is we need to establish leadership sooner and more directly. And what I mean by directly is I think in the past a lot of it's been osmosis in a sense of we let the leaders, the cream rise to the top, and they kind of take it. Whereas this year we're taking a much more direct approach of these are the guys that we think can do it. We need to get them in front of the team. We need to put them and give them exposure to lead. And if they don't float, they sink. Then it's the next man up. But we've got to establish leadership sooner so that when the bolts are flying in the fall and you have 50 new guys on a roster, they've been through some things together, and there's a voice that they respond to outside of just the coaching staff. So those were the two things that as I really evaluated, I really wanted to be super intentional about very early on, and we have been the onboarding process and the changes we've made. I'm extremely pleased with, and I can't even explain how much more smoothly I feel that these first 2 weeks have gone. Even though we have almost twice the amount of new guys we had this time last year, I feel like where we're at now is more like where we were, 6 or 7 weeks into this thing already. So it was a ton of work to do it this way. I do think it's a lot different than most places are doing, but I feel really good about it.
Okay, I was going to ask you this question later in the interview, but I want to move it up now. You guys have always talked about a player-led program, okay? So when you have the turnover that you have now with all the guys coming in, and this seems like it's just going to be a constant thing, is it harder to have a player-led program when you have all this much turnaround, or tell me about that?
Yeah, I think it's just the equation changes a little bit. The general philosophy of what we do, which is, we're number one, the urgency, like I said, to do everything increases. So the urgency to teach our culture and our standard, you have to onboard that rapidly, right? There's not like hey, here's an 8-week like no, we've got to get this to you now. And so it's drinking out of a fire hose to a degree for them early on, but for us to be successful, we've got to establish those things very early. And then leadership as well. We've got to put the guys in the roles. We've got to teach them how to do it. We've got to see if they can do it. And if they can't, then we've got to get the next guy in there and put them in the situation to do it. So I just think, is it still possible? Absolutely. But the equation is always, okay, someone's got to lead the program. So while the players are learning it, the coaches have to lead. And then in an ideal scenario, as the players learn the standard, they learn the culture, and they learn how to lead, they start leading more, and you start leading less. And that equation starts to gradually change. And so I just think for us that needs to, it doesn't change how it is every year. It's always heavy up front with me and my staff because we're with them first, right, early on. And then it gradually shifts to them. And now that gradual shift just has to happen a lot quicker. We are 3 weeks into this, and we are throwing new guys into the fire, especially with leadership and things we just did today, but things we've done in the past, but seeing how do they respond when they're in the middle of conditioning and they're set with this task of they got to go lead the team, deliver a message, and ultimately lead them to a successful accomplishment. And we're doing those things. So I really don't look at it holistically like a lot of things have changed. It's just the urgency to do them is that is really what I've felt sitting in my chair for the last 3 weeks.
Okay, now last January, you went through this in a way that just not as big of a group. How much did it help doing this last January, which at least gives you a better plan to tackle it now?
I think just from what I started talking about is it gave me a data pool of normative data to sit there and go, okay, if with 20 of them I look back and go, I don't really like how we onboarded them, how am I going to feel with 50 of them? So I think setting that medium for really to evaluate against, that part to me is huge, because like I said, my thing is as I started kind of looking back and going, man, I wish like we would have onboarded them quicker or more definitively or gotten more details on things. I started reaching out to every NFL strength coach I could get a number for, and I just asked them in the NFL, because it's a lot similar to that. Hey, you get a free agent off the street who you know nothing about, who, sure, you might get some physical paperwork and injury history there, but you don't know him personally. You don't know what he's been doing. You don't know what kind of shape he's in. What's your onboarding process? And ultimately, I collected all this information and talking to all these different people, and it was some of them I was like, okay, that's good. Some of them I was shocked that there wasn't a better answer, and I didn't want to be that have that kind of plan, and so we really went the other route. And maybe we overdid it. Maybe we onboarded them and got too much info, but I would rather live in that world now, because like I said, going into day one, we already had everything established. Hey, these 7 guys have a history of knee tendinopathy. They're not going to do these exercises. They're going to do these ones. These guys, when we check their references with their previous strength coaches, these 3 are they're go-getters. Those are the guys that we could probably push into leadership right away. These 2, they're a little squirrely. Maybe their attention span's not good. We're going to sit them in the front of the room. So, I mean, I'm talking down to every minute detail. We had a plan for 112 guys before we started this off-season program that I felt like we could sit down and execute, down to who doesn't have good training room habits at their previous school, and that we want to sit down with before we start and help develop a routine. Hey, you're going to be in the building at 6 a.m. for a 7 a.m. lift. You're going to eat breakfast at 6:05. You're going to be in the training room from 6:10 to 6:30 working on your hips because you have a history of hip pathology. And so we dove in now. It was a lot of work, but like I said, I truly feel, and this could also be the athletes we have in this class, but I feel like we are at least 3 to 4 weeks ahead right now of where we were with last year's group. And remember, there's twice as many.
So it's early, okay? Just what are your impressions of the group with the guys who've reported so far?
Number one, the first clear-cut thing is we have guys that want to win, that are very competitive. This hasn't been an issue for us, but with this group, it's been tremendous. It's just been such quick buy-in to what we do. It's really cool to get the best thing about this day and age is you really get to have an idea of how your program stacks up across the country, because you have these guys come in from the SEC, the Big Ten, from every place. And when these guys go, man, I've never done it like this before, or man, this is the hardest thing I've ever, or man, this is, I've never heard leadership or culture broken down like this before. That's reassuring, that our processes are in the right direction, right? That you hear those things, and that part is definitely reassuring. But we have a lot of guys that want to play football that are highly competitive, and I would expect this spring to be our most competitive spring yet to date. So it's been really good. I'm really pleased with our movement quality. That's where I think they're just catching on quicker than last year's class, as far as you get them on the field, you teach them a new movement pattern, you assess their mechanics. We have some pretty good fluid movers, and guys that pick things up pretty quickly. I think weight room wise, we definitely have some developing to do. We have to get bigger, and we have to get stronger. And that's everyone. That's the returners, and that's the new guys coming in the program. That's probably the first thing I've seen. But right now, I'm really pleased with the effort that they're making to connect with one another, which is what we're really pushing two things really hard. One is connection, and two is toughness. Redefine your hard. At the end of the day, wherever you come from, whatever you do, make the easy things look easy. And if you really want to win, make the hard things look easy too. But we've got to redefine what we think is hard, challenging, whatever words you want to use. And we've got to be able to face anything that comes our way. And so, yeah, right now I'm really pleased with the first 3 weeks. And I think the best thing about having because last year, if you remember, we only had a 5-week off season. And that was another thing we evaluated of once we got those guys from the transfer portal. Those guys don't do anything when they're in that thing, okay? The transfer portal is more or less like a couch attached to Netflix. You just sit there and you don't do anything. And so, like that's we have had maybe 2 guys in 2 years come here in really good shape, ready to actually kind of train at our level. And so, I think right now, what I'm really feeling is knowing we have 8 weeks. Because I'm sitting here thinking in my chair right now, like, oh my goodness, we were starting spring ball in 2 weeks, as I sit in my chair today a year ago. And me thinking about that doesn't make me feel so excited. And so I think that was another thing that as we evaluated last year, we said we need more time to get them in shape so we get more out of spring ball. And so we are able to move a little more slowly as far as physical progression. And I think that's paying dividends right now too, to truly have 8 weeks to really lay some good groundwork of development. So, I think we're in a pretty good spot right now.
All right, one of the hot topics, I always ask you this because the fans always want to know. Give me the group of guys who are going to be competing for that kind of fastest player on the team.
Yeah, we got it's hard to exactly say right now because really you do have these transfer portal guys. So many come in either with an injury from the actual season, or in some form of injury history, or they're just not in good enough shape to really get up and go right now. But we have some guys. Chase Jenkins, the quarterback from Rice, is going to be able to go. Najee Cox, the receiver from Middle Tennessee State. He's only sprinted. We've only kind of gotten him through 2 sprint training sessions so far. He got here late, but very quickly you saw he's going to be able to scoot and go. Dylan Edwards he's going to be up there, if not the fastest guy we have, and that's just more so less of what he's currently doing, but just knowing his history. And then you have the guys that are returners that we already know: Mason Ellis, Jalen Todd, and I think Cam Pickett's going to sneak up there this year. That guy, the way he trains and the way he works, and what he's going to only continue to get faster and faster. So we got a good group right now, but I think we're going to be in a great position here in a couple of months, and we're excited.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about this. I mean, you got new facilities. Obviously, the east side's going up. You got the new stadium. How much does that help when you talk with parents and recruits coming on campus, and even the current players, just with what you do?
It's tremendous, and I think we've talked about this before, but to me, it's more symbolism of investment. You cannot walk on this campus and tell me that football is not important. You cannot show up to work every day and tell me football isn't important to the administration, to the people, to the city. It's that, and that's what maybe people don't talk enough about. It's that daily symbolism that every time you drive past it and see the construction or see the new area that's done, or for our guys, every time they walk into that meal room that I really believe is state of the art, and I'm sure Andy's probably mentioned this too, but like Chef Mike, that guy deserves his own piece here at some point in time. Of just as we've talked to all these transfers as well, I talked about how they come in and say, man, I've never seen leadership like this, or a standard or culture kind of explained like this, or man, I've never done something like not. There's not one guy that comes here that doesn't say this is the best food they've ever had. and that is, I mean, I cannot tell you the asset that is to our program, that our guys, and we have a chef that's out there that's able to produce restaurant quality food. It truly is extremely, extremely special. When you talk to Andy, Coach K, about like Penn, I mean, he's like, it ain't even close what we have here in comparison to where it was before. So it's really unique. So that'd be definitely worth, keeping on the back burner for you at some point to do a piece on that guy, or someone should, because he is the behind the scenes difference maker right now, and honestly, he's super valuable to our program. I want to make sure he knows that too.
That was Coach Matt Gildersleeve chatting with Kirby, and as always, delivers a ton of good information on the Kansas football strength program. That will do it for another edition of the Inside Slant podcast from jayhawkslant.com. For my man Shea Wildeboer, my buddy John Kirby, I'm Randy Withers. You've been listening to the Inside Slant podcast. We'll talk with you again soon. Rock chalk.
This has been a podcast from jayhawkslant.com.